What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic week as always. Today we're here to cover WWE Crown Jewel for 2022, of course being held in Saudi Arabia. Before we get going, I want to apologize in advance if I sound a little weird or a little manlier than normal. I'm battling this cold, hopefully getting over this annoying, inconvenient little cold. So with that being said, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up on that. But I did want to get a show out there for you all and hopefully get another one out within the next few days as well if everything continues to go smoothly with all this sickness going on here. But with that being said, again, thank you guys, of course, for listening to the show. As always, it's super appreciated. You can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS. You can follow the show on Twitter at KickAshPodcast_. But with that being said, we will dive right into it. I think I'm going to start with the probably biggest news coming out of it, which is the stellar main event match that we got. That, of course, being Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. I think it goes without saying Logan Paul is the real deal, you know, and I will eat crow again if I haven't admitted already with the whole Logan Paul nonsense going on in WWE now. It's, and nonsense, I mean, in the best way possible. Look, I wouldn't call myself a hater because I just didn't really know who he was. I heard, like I've said, a little bit about him. Like I knew the name before going into it, or before he came into wrestling, rather. For the longest time, I didn't even realize there was two brothers. I thought they were the same person. I've obviously learned since then. But yeah, so long story short, dude, I mean, for whatever it's worth, gained my respect tonight. You know, I think after his first showing with the tag match at WrestleMania and then his match against The Miz, and then, of course, what we got here this afternoon at Crown Jewel facing Roman Reigns, I think the first thing that was pretty apparent is dude takes this seriously, you know what I mean? And I think that says a lot, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why going back and rewatching the main event, full disclosure, I fell asleep earlier. The meds kicked in. So I had to go back and rewatch the main event. But, yeah, the dude takes it seriously, right? So I think that's why going back and, like I was saying, rewatching the match again, it just kind of was a little bit even more impactful than starting it and watching it live earlier. Just because... And I think the thing that really stood out to me specifically was after the match was over. Specifically, I mean, I'll get into Roman Reigns in a minute, but just Logan, just seeing him take the pinfall, him take the loss, him not even throw one leg up, not even move an arm, not even make any either slight or sudden movement, showing that he was going to try to kick out of 3, or he could have kicked out of 3.5, or anything like that we've seen from well-respected wrestlers and from wrestlers who have been in the game for a minute and for whatever reason just can't or don't want to take a 3 count, you know. One is coming specifically in mind, but I'm not going to go down that route right now. But that really stood out to me, and not that I was really expecting him to, like, go into business for himself or anything like that, but just the way he took the loss, the way he didn't make it about himself. After the match was over, of course, Roman and the Bloodline went on the ramp and did their celebration up there. But just seeing Logan sit on the apron and his brother out there, I mean, if you guys thought I knew little of Logan Paul, I know even less of Jake Paul. And again, that's no shade, no disrespect. It's just me being transparent with the guys. But just seeing Logan just, like, kind of embrace his brother and just be like, I love you, man, and just, like, kind of look down and defeat it, you know, pun intended. It was just cool. It was a good feeling for me, and like I said, it really made me gain a lot of respect for him, and it made me want to see him come back sooner than I really thought I would. And it's interesting because I think I kind of want to see him on a schedule, if, like, ideally, right? Because, I mean, I know he has his I guess, YouTube show, and I know he has a podcast, that Impulsive podcast. I'm sure it's a YouTube show as well. But, so, I mean, obviously he's got that. I know he owns that Prime. I guess it's like some, like, workout drink or whatever. obviously he has his own business endeavors is what I'm getting at, but I don't know specifically like what he does, like if he does like anything, like for instance like Pat McAfee, right? Like Pat McAfee has a set schedule like Monday through Friday, not Monday through Saturday with being part of like college and all that. So we know Pat has a set schedule. So that being said, I'm not sure what Logan has, and it's kind of weird, and I don't really know how I feel about myself saying this, but I think he gained more than just like me as a wrestling fan of his now. I think I'm gonna put forth some effort and check out some of his shit and see like what dude actually does. And I mean, I've heard a little bit about the controversy in the past and all that, but I don't know, man. Like I've said in the past, and not to go on too much of a Logan Paul love fest here, but we all do and say stupid shit in the past. And again, I'm not gonna even try to touch on anything that he's done because I know maybe very, very minimal of maybe, or put like a headline, right? A headline equivalent is what I really know of Logan Paul's past. So that's why I said I want to do like, I guess my due diligence, and kind of like look into him maybe tonight, tomorrow if I can't sleep. But, and see like more what dude is about. But if this is the start of him kind of being indoctrinated more in the wrestling world, like I was getting at, I would like to see him maybe around more than like a Brock Lesnar schedule. Maybe a Roman Reigns type schedule. Maybe he shows up on a few key SmackDowns or Raws and hits a few key pay-per-views. I mean, he did sign, what was it, like a 3-year deal with WWE, so dude is going to be around for a while. He's been training with Shawn Michaels at the Performance Center, and I mean, can you get a better trainer than Shawn Michaels? I please let me know if you can. And so it's just, dude is kind of set up for success right now, and I would be shocked if he kind of dipped out or didn't really pursue this more, because something about it tonight, and I guess of course we will. I was kind of debating on if I was just going to hit the main event now, but I'll save it for the proper main event slot. But even with the whole selfie thing and the frog splash from the top turnbuckle to the announce table, he just, it's 50-50 with him, right? And I think they being WWE, need to be really careful how they present him going forward, and really need to lock down how they want to present him going forward, whether that's as a good guy, a bad guy. And I think something about him just screams heel, right? But I don't know, again, just seeing how he handled the agony of defeat tonight just really showed something to me. So we'll definitely dig into that a little bit more once we get to that match itself, but I would like to go in order because it just helps me stay organized. And we open the show with Brock Lesnar facing off against the almighty Bobby Lashley. Again, I am just enamored with Bobby Lashley's entrance. I don't know what it is. Dude is just amazing. He's a physical specimen. It's just a true masterpiece, right? And as I was saying that, I thought back to Chris Masters, and it's just Bobby Lashley, man. He's just amazing. And to think he's 46, I think, is what I heard, or some shit like that. Like, dude, it's insane. It's insane. But he made his way out first, followed by, of course, Brock Lesnar making his way thereafter. The match started out pretty quick. Lashley attacked Lesnar before he could even get in the ring. He ran Lesnar into the steel stairs, and Lesnar then pretty much for, I think, the remainder of the match sold a left knee injury after that. Lashley hit Lesnar with a spear, and once they got back inside of the ring, or actually officially inside of the ring, Lashley connected with the second spear. Lesnar was able to exit the ring to buy some time to recover, but Lashley followed him and hit a third spear, sending Lesnar crashing through the barricade, which is a spot that they like to do a lot lately, but it's still pretty cool to see, especially two big meaty men, right, slamming each other through barricades. After a fourth spear, though, when they made their way back inside of the ring, Lesnar kicked out after two. Lesnar that was pretty obvious was after the match was over and Lashley was, again, pissed off. Lesnar was still kind of rolling around on the mat, trying to regain himself, regain composure, all that. Lashley applied the Hurt Lock again, and wouldn't release it. And it was actually a really good visual. And again, I don't think Lesnar gets enough credit for the sell job that he does in matches, especially matches against dudes like Bobby Lashley and bigger dudes or dudes pretty much the size of Lesnar. So if you didn't see this match, or if you're not watching Crown Jewel, maybe just check out like a GIF or like the ending sequence of this, or just like the aftermath of the match itself. Just because Brock Lesnar just did a great job of selling and just really selling the effects and the destruction of Bobby Lashley. I say it was anticlimactic because while I like the finish, it just really felt like it came out of nowhere. And I get, in UFC and like real fights or whatever, that's the whole point. Like, the ending can come out of nowhere. But it just, I don't know, it just kind of felt underwhelming in a way. It just wasn't packing, no pun intended, that punch. So while I like what I'm assuming is the confirmed heel turn for Lashley, and what this means for the future, I think we're going to get a rubber match out of this because now they're both 1-1, and I think this sets up a nice rematch for Survivor Series, which is, I think, 2-3 weeks away, if I'm not mistaken. So that'd be a good way to run it back, and for, not that it's I'll just say it now, since MVP was absent in the Omos and Braun Strowman match later on in the evening, I don't know if that's a sign. I mean, yes, I think MVP, I missed the majority of SmackDown, but I think MVP was attacked on SmackDown, so that was a way to write him off of not making Crown Jewel. So I think with Omos taking, spoiler alert, the loss later on in Crown Jewel, maybe that's a way to get MVP away from Omos, get Omos off of the screen, so you just kind of necessarily forget, out of sight, out of mind that MVP and Omos were a pair. Put MVP back with Bobby Lashley, get the heel, I guess, duo going, heel manager, heel client, and Bobby Lashley, and then reform the Hurt Business. I think that you could really, really get what you should have got the first time out of them as a group. I think they just looked the part. They gel so well together, them as a four-pack, you know what I mean? Cedric Alexander, Shelton, Bobby Lashley, and MVP. They just look and just smell like money, man. And I think WWE really dropped the ball on the first run and with breaking them up so soon, and for no reason, really. So, and at this point, I think it doesn't even matter. Just throw them all back together and just call it a day. But I hope that's the route that we're going. And I'm happy that Lesnar ended up getting the victory here in the way that he did. Going into it, I would have predicted Lashley, but thinking back and forgetting, honestly, that Lashley had the upper hand in their, I guess, bouts against each other right now, it makes sense that Lesnar would get the victory here. Lesnar, I guess, did kind of need it too, if you think about all the L's he's been taking lately. And I think, like I said, it sets up a rubber match at Survivor Series. The next matchup that we have was the Women's Tag Team Championship match. Your tag team champions going into the match was Alexa Bliss and Asuka facing off against Damage Control, being Dakota Kai and Io Sky. The match itself was pretty good. I think this was the best match that we've seen Damage Control as a tag team together. And I think, of course you have Asuka in there, so, Asuka, I think she's kind of like what a lot of people have said of what AJ Styles, she could have a good match with the broomstick. Asuka just has a way of just amplifying everyone that she's in the ring with, and I think that this really kind of showed here tonight. And it's just so good to have Asuka back, too. And of course, Alexa Bliss is no sleeper either. Alexa Bliss has really improved a lot in the ring, and I think as much as I think her and Asuka do well together as a team, I really just want them separate. And I hate to say it, but I'm just not a fan of the tag team championships to begin with for the women's division. I wish Triple H would have just left it alone and just left them on the table. You know what I mean? And nothing against them, or like the women, obviously, I want the women to be showcased as much as possible, but it just feels forced, and it's just not clicking. I think all of this is just doing more damage than good. So yeah, but the match itself was good. Like I was starting off saying, there was one point in the match where Damage Control set up Bliss for a double suplex off of the top rope, where before Asuka could come in and kind of joined in the action and made it a combination suplex powerbomb, which was just beautiful. It was just so well done, so in sync. It's just, and again, it's Asuka, but it's everyone too. Yes, Asuka could have a good match with the broomstick, right? But you still need, ideally, you're not going to have a match with the broomstick. You still need someone who is just as good as you, or someone who knows what they're doing in the ring, right? And this isn't their first rodeo, and that definitely applies for all 4 women involved. The ending sequence was pretty. I don't know the exact time frame for this match. I didn't get the timestamps, but I was actually kind of surprised that they got as much time as they did. And I was pleasantly surprised, I should say, for that matter. But the ending sequence came when Sky was attempting a springboard moonsault. Asuka was able to evade. It allowed Bliss to drop Dakota Kai with a twisted DDT to set up Kai for a twisted Bliss before Nikki Cross intervened. She made her way, I guess, through the fans, through the audience. She came running through and connected with a draped DDT, which allowed Kai to secure the pinfall and have the new tag team champions being Dakota Kai and Io Sky a quick reign and a quick W and a quick L, for that matter, for Alexa and Asuka, as they had just won the tag team championships this past Monday. A lot of people were speculating going into it that they won on Monday just so they could lose it here, just so we at least had one title change at Crown Jewel, which makes sense, but it kind of made me a little bit frustrated after we saw the women's championship match later on, which we'll be getting to in a minute. But full disclosure here, guys, the next matchup was Drew McIntyre and Killer Cross. I'm reading his handle, which I guess he should probably change. Karrion Kross, and that was a steel cage match. I saw the entrance, didn't see the majority of the match, and then I saw the ending where we had Scarlett interfering-ish, kind of, or at least distracting Drew. Scarlett had the key to the steel cage door, which we just need to do away with the door. Just be done with the door, or at least just make that a non-way to win the match. But she was distracting Drew and pretty much showing that she had the key. Drew was like, all right, bet, and climbed over the top cage. And before Scarlett could unlock the door so Karrion could escape prior to Drew hit the floor and with both feet and ended up picking up the victory here. But my feet was just really weird. That was kind of why, too, I had to go back and watch the main event and why I ended up falling asleep. I guess it was just mine. I didn't really see anyone else having issues on Twitter. But Peacock just wasn't jiving with me for this match in the main event specifically, so I missed the bulk of it. But again, this kind of is similar to the prior match with Lashley and Lesnar. I think this was just a way to get Drew a victory here and to kind of even up the score, and I could definitely see them having a rubber match at Survivor Series. If not a Survivor Series, maybe like on a big SmackDown or a SmackDown that they want to kind of promote. At this point with Survivor Series being so close, I just kind of see them holding off. But it depends on how stacked Survivor Series is going to be, with it being War Games, and, that's obviously going to take up a good amount of time. So we'll see how it ends up playing out. And I'll be very interested to see who ends up picking up the deciding victory in this feud, especially with them going to a third match, which I think is pretty obvious here as well. Again, I think Cross probably needs it a little bit more since he's new on the scene. He's still solidifying himself and establishing himself on the roster, and just like rebuilding himself from the debacle it was his first debut, no fault of his own. But man, like you hate to see Drew taking loss after loss. We do have that World Cup coming up. Don't really know too much details on that. I don't really know when that's really gonna start or begin. It just popped into my head, so. But maybe I bring that up because maybe that's something that Drew could go back and later win and kind of have that under his belt and just kind of focus on that if he does end up losing the feud here with Cross. But it just sucks for Drew, Maybe we'll get into that a little bit more in a later show. But I think right now you got to give the deciding victory to Cross. And I think it needs to be a deciding victory. And as crazy as this sounds and as counterproductive maybe as this is, I want to see them just have a regular match. I want Scarlett to be banned. I don't even know how you do that, or if you put Scarlett in a shark cage or some shit. You know what I mean? I just want Charlotte to be a non-factor. I just want to see really what Cross and McIntyre can do. So, we'll see. The next matchup we had was the Judgment Day. Of course, Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Dominic being accompanied by Rhea Ripley, who looked fan-fucking-tastic, if I say so myself, versus the OC, which is AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson. Rhea came out and had her hair done up in homage to Beth Phoenix, and I think she said it was like in remembrance of Beth. So there's that. I think that's just kind of just another just slam dunk that we're going to be getting Rhea and Beth at some point. I hope at this point we get it at Royal Rumble, because I think it would be a big enough match, and I mean, you can do it at Survivor Series, but there's no signs that Edge is getting back involved or that Beth is coming back anytime soon, so I think pacing wise you could probably save that for the Rumble itself. But the match kicked off, and this was a really good match. I think this was really a really good back and forth match, and this was the first 6-man match that we've seen the OC back since Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows made their return, partnering up with AJ Styles. So that's pretty cool. At the beginning of the match, we got a shout out from Michael Cole. He specifically said that Carl Anderson is the never openweight champion for New Japan. He talked about the history of the Bullet Club, which I was just shocked by, and it's just cool to hear and just cool to see, or not see, I guess, but just or I guess figuratively see WWE just being okay and acknowledging, hey, there's other wrestling walks of life that exist out there, you know what I mean? And it's not going to kill you guys. You guys aren't going to lose some marketing deal or lose millions of fans and thousands of viewers, and people aren't going to just stop watching the second you mention New Japan to go see what it is. Like, it's just, and it's a good look, and it's just cool, and it's not a big thing, and it's not a big deal, and it shouldn't even be something that I'm sitting here talking about, but it's just another sign of change, and it's just another sign of hope, you know what I mean? It's just another little thing that really adds up and really makes a big difference. The small things matter, you know? So to me, it just really stood out, and it was just really cool to hear. The ending sequence came after Styles was setting up Dominic Mysterio for the phenomenal forearm. And by the way, Dominic is such a great seller as well. Dude is really coming into his own, and it's just really fun to watch. And after this whole Judgment Day thing wraps up, whenever that is, I'm not really hoping it's anytime soon, for that matter. But when it does, I would love to see him take maybe a month off and just kind of disappear for a bit, and then pop up at NXT and just be fucking dominant down there. And I would love to see him be the one to dethrone Braun Breaker. That be your way to get Braun Breaker on and kind of do an even exchange, right? Have Braun Breaker drop the title to Dominic Mysterio. Breaker makes his debut on either SmackDown or Raw, whenever that is. And then you have Dominic down there just being this cocky son of a bitch down there saying, yeah, I was on the main roster, I ran shit up there, now I'm down here, I'm your new champion, this is my show, blah, 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 and just go from there. And there's so much talent that he can work with, he can really learn. You have fucking Shawn Michaels down there, like, I just think that would be so ideal, and it's not a step down or a step back or anything like that, or anything negative. I think it would be cool to see, and to be honest, like, it would really get me engaged in NXT a little bit more too. Like, I would love to see him just embrace being on his own, and you can even have Rhea Ripley pop up from time to time down there if you want. But I just think it would be really cool to see him do his own thing down there, and I think he would be a good NXT champion for what NXT 2.0 is right now. If this was black and gold, I would say different. But with the landscape down there, I think he could really, to be honest, I see that in that time frame probably after WrestleMania, right? I see him going to WrestleMania, having that match against his father. Whether he wins or loses, it doesn't matter. Or it does matter. I could honestly see him, taking a quick pause, I think the ideal thing would be to have Judgment Day run his course through WrestleMania, Dominic pick up the victory over his father at WrestleMania, keep him heel, then have him go to NXT, or have him maybe show up on the Raw after Mania, take in all the boos and all the bullshit that the fans are going to want to throw at him, right? Then have him take a couple weeks off, go to NXT, or not even take a couple weeks off. If the heat is real and the momentum is real, keep it, roll with it, but transform that over into NXT. And then that's when you do your pretty much even exchange. You have Dominic go to NXT, you have Braun Breaker come up to the roster, and you just go from there. So whether that actually happens, we'll see, but I just think that would be really cool, and I don't really see why that would be a negative at all. But going back to the match itself here, the finish, like I said, came after Styles was setting up Mysterio for the phenomenal forearm, only to have Rhea Ripley, who was on the outside, peel him from the apron onto her shoulders before planting him onto the ring apron. After that, she kind of rolled him back inside of the ring. Balor capitalized with a shotgun dropkick, followed by the finisher, the coup de grace from the top rope for the pinfall victory. Balor attempted the coup de grace moments earlier, but Styles had recovered and superplexed the leader of the Judgment Day, while Gallows and Anderson had connected with electric chairs on Mysterio and Priest, respectively, which was just so beautiful, and it was just so cool to see. Wasn't anything like out of the box, but it was just a cool visual. And then, like I said, that then set up the ending sequence there with Judgment Day getting the victory, and the main factor being Ripley, and Michael Cole even said Rhea Ripley needs to get her ass kicked, which I thought was just amazing to hear. But after that, we had the Battle of the Giants. We had Braun Strowman facing off against I almost said Almighty, but the Nigerian giant Omos. Braun Strowman was listed as 6'8", 344 pounds, and Omos was listed as 7'3", 403 pounds. Which is just in the visual, it's cool to see too. Again, not frequently that you see Strowman have anyone pretty much dwarf him in size, and it was just a cool visual to see. I think the top of Strowman's head came to like Omos's chin, so it's wild to see. But it was pretty cool, or not pretty cool, but it was pretty surprising rather. Omos dominated the match pretty much the majority of it. It was actually really surprising. Omos, I don't again have my timestamps here, which is kind of bothering me. But I'm gonna say Omos dominated a good 5, 6, 7 minutes of the match itself. Even scooping up Strowman and hitting him with a body slam and making it look pretty easy, and early on in the match, so it was really, really quite stunning to see. And again, yes, Strowman has had good matches with Roman Reigns in the past, for instance, which feels like decades ago now. But Strowman really did a great job selling to Omos here too, and really just selling the fact that he's a big man taking these moves from another bigger man. It was just really, really cool to see. But the ending sequence kind of came about, again, kind of out of nowhere. Once we were back inside, they kind of went back and forth outside of the ring for a good portion towards the end of the match, but once they made their way back inside of the ropes, Omos attempted a two-handed chokeslam, but Strowman countered that with a running power slam for the win. And again, the visual of seeing Strowman hit the running power slam onto Omos was just pretty cool, even if this match didn't really tickle your fancy or anything like that. I think it served its purpose. Again, I'm still kind of surprised Omos got in as much offense as he did. But I think Strowman getting the victory here was the solid and the right thing to do. And again, MVP was not present here. Omos didn't even need MVP. No sign of being lost or anything like that, character-wise. So, an interesting development, and again, I hope that's a sign that we're getting the Hurt Business back together as a foursome. Even if it's just Lashley and MVP, I'll take that, but I think you're really doing a disservice if you don't reunite the Hurt Business when you can. The next matchup was the Undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship match. Of course, your champions are the Usos, Jay and Jimmy Uso, facing off against the Brawling Brutes, Ridge Holland versus Ridge Holland and Butch. This match was really good as well. No surprise here. But I think one of the Usos, Jimmy or specifically, ended up getting injured during the match. And I think there was some speculation that maybe both. There was, I think at one point, someone had mentioned that Jay had injured his wrist and Jimmy injured maybe his left shoulder. And Jimmy's was maybe a little bit more concerning than Jay's, and that's obviously very, very concerning because first they're on the verge of making history, and they have their big match on SmackDown to face off against the New Day, presumably going to win to extend their reign as the longest reigning tag team champions in WWE history. So if one of them are injured and they can't compete or they have to relinquish the titles or anything like that, I think, of course, for that's going to be a huge blow. But then for the bloodline itself, yes, you can have them, I guess, appear on TV while they're recovering, like arms in the sling and stuff like that. But man, that's going to be a really big blow, So hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully it's just more concern than anything else. And as I'm saying that, I kind of want to correct myself. I think at least speculation for one of their injuries had happened on the European tour prior, and this was maybe just a lingering and an injury that was carrying over. But whatever the case is, and regardless if when it occurred, I hope they're good, and if they are injured, I hope it's nothing too serious and it's nothing that's really going to keep them out on the shelves for too long. But nothing really too exciting, I want to say, for the ending here. The match was good, but it wasn't anything that really stood out. We did get Butch kind of focusing and singling in on Jay's injured right hand, so they definitely did play that up. That led to Holland scooping up Jay before Butch super kicked him, followed by a body slam. This time, Jimmy was there to break up the pin and led to the 1D for the finish. And again, once the 1D is hit and once you kind of see the ending, it's just kind of one and done. No, I guess, pun intended. But I don't know. I'm kind of a little concerned about the injuries, and I hope that it's just more hype than anything else built into it. But again, the match was okay. It was fine, All the guys, of course, are going to give you a good, solid match, but I really just don't think that we even needed this match on the card, to be honest with you. And I think that the Usos specifically, if they were injured too, could have used this as a night off from in-ring action rather, and just, of course, accompanied or done their thing that they were going to do with Roman Reigns in the main event. But yeah, I don't know. It was what it was. We did get an appearance from Bray Wyatt. He made his return to Saudi Arabia, and I'm sure he has mixed feelings in Saudi Arabia. He has had great highs in Saudi Arabia, winning the championship, and great lows in Saudi Arabia by losing the championship to fucking Goldberg. So there's that. But this message that we got from Bray Wyatt was rather interesting. He kind of went a different route. He referenced that he has a prestigious family and a wrestling past and a wrestling family, and mentioned that they have greatness that he had to live up to, and no one, like, essentially saying that no one loves him, and that's pretty much been like essentially like an eternal battle for him, and what caused him to become this monster and this fiend, Again, I'm hit all these puns, but it caused him to be everything that we've seen him in the past be, and what we see him as here today. The fans there in Saudi Arabia chanted, "We do love you," or "We love you," or some shit like that, and said, "Yes, we do," actually they were like really playing along and really feeding into it, which was cool to see. And I think they even chanted "Welcome back" at one point, so it's cool, it's just cool to see how stories can carry and wrestling carries around the world. So I'll just leave it at that. But of course as he was going and kind of expressing, and kind of giving us a brief history of Bray without saying specific names, we of course got the interruption by Uncle Howdy on the big screen. I don't really know exactly word for word what he said. I just recommend you guys go in and check out the clip, which I'm sure has probably gotten 1 million views on YouTube already, or if not 1 million, pretty close to it. But yeah, it was an interesting development and really interesting to see him bringing up his wrestling family. I don't think any incarnation of Bray has ever mentioned his wrestling family, or specifically that his actual family has a wrestling background. So again, he didn't mention specific names, but he definitely referenced that. So it was, again, very interesting to hear him say and bring that up. The next matchup that we had on the card was the last women's standing match for the Raw Women's Championship. Your women's champion being Bianca Belair facing off against Bayley. This, from what I've seen a little bit on Twitter, has kind of been hit or miss. I think a lot of guys, or a lot of, I don't know, guys, but a lot of just people in general have either been on the camp that they love this match or been on the camp that they hated this match. And I'm not going to say, I guess, after saying that, I'm not going to say I loved it, but I didn't hate it either. I think it was good. I think this was their best match that they've had together. There was this one and they really utilized their surroundings as well. Like, they, obviously, being last woman standing, they didn't just keep it in the ring or near the ring. They went to the top of the stage. Bayley disappeared for a little bit and came back with a golf cart and drove the golf cart probably as slow as could be, in anticipation of hitting Bianca. I bet Sammy wished that Bayley was driving instead of Matt and Kenny back in AEW, but it was just so comical. I don't know if Bayley was just concerned that and didn't want to go too fast and was afraid to like gas it, or if the thing was just too fucking slow. But Bianca had ample time to avoid, and she obviously did. But to get Bayley back to the ring, Bianca threw Bayley and kind of course, beat her up a bit and threw her on top of the golf cart and drove the golf cart back down to the ring. Ended up putting Bayley through a table that was waiting, still set up right in front of the ring itself on the outside of it. Back inside of the ring, Belair power slammed Bayley onto a stack of chairs that was set up inside of the ring and then flew off the top rope with a 450 splash, but Bayley evaded. Bianca landed on the pile of chairs instead of Bayley, obviously, but was up at the count of 9, because, again, this is not a pinfall victory here. You have to your opponent has to be out for the count of 10 or unable to make both feet by the count of 10. But finally, Belair was able to deliver the KOD onto a chair before trapping Bayley, which was interesting, before trapping Bayley inside of a ladder that was under the ring post for the 10 count. So Bayley was pretty much trapped in between the, I guess, legs of the ladder, and the ladder itself was kind of sandwiched underneath of the rope itself. So Bayley couldn't squeeze herself out of the ladder before the count of 10. Not really a fan of that ending, to be honest with you. Yeah, it was creative, but it wasn't a solid victory. Like, Bayley wasn't knocked out, like, Bayley wasn't incapacitated, like, she just couldn't get out from between the ladder. And yeah, like, you give creativity and props to Bianca for, I guess, getting the victory and being creative, right? But it's like, you didn't win. Like, I mean, you won, but you didn't beat her, you know? You outsmarted her. And I guess, yeah, that is part of, I guess, the point of getting a victory too. It's just, I don't know, that's something that I would, I guess, expect more out of a heel, right? Like, doing anything you can to win the match. And let me know if I'm just kind of like nitpicking on this too much, guys, but I don't know. I would have expected that out of Bayley, not out of Bianca. So I don't know. And again, with what I was mentioning earlier, with Damage Control picking up the tag team titles, I would have really expected and wanted Bayley to win the victory and more so win the title here, rather. So I don't know. I think this has got to be it for Bianca and Bayley. I don't know how you run this match back with Bianca just continuously winning over Bayley and just Bayley kind of looking foolish at this point, just never getting the upper hand, even have Damage Control interfering in their last match and still losing. So, I don't know. The match itself I didn't hate, but I was not a fan of the outcome itself. Even if you're going to have Bianca win for that matter, I just thought that you could have done it differently. But that leaves us with our main event, which I already spoke, I guess, a lot about Logan Paul specifically, but the match itself was just so well done. Roman Reigns, he made his way out to the ring with just Paul Heyman, and then the Bloodline ended up making the way out later on. And then, of course, Jake Paul did as well. He had his own entrance theme. And Solo Sikoa did as well, so, no shade. But the match itself was just so well done. It started off with basic wrestling and basic wrestling holds and just, but it wasn't like pandering and like, oh, like Roman is just kind of like lowering himself to Logan, like to do what Logan can do because he's so new. It was just basic wrestling stuff, and Roman really bodied and handled and controlled the match. And I think Roman really deserves a lot of props here. And I think this was one of, as crazy as this is going to sound, one of Roman's best title defenses that he's had in his reign here. I think it was that well done. And if you haven't seen the match, like I really, really encourage you to see it. Logan Paul, like I mentioned earlier, the, I guess, moment of the match, he had put Roman Reigns on top of the Arabic announce table on the outside, got one of, I don't know, one of his friends, I guess, had their phone and was obviously recording, probably for their show, ringside, grabbed the phone, and Logan, and this was another just shout out and call out to his athleticism. He stood on the top of the rope for probably a good 30 seconds, was looking around at all the fans, was holding the phone, recording himself, doing a selfie, showing the fans, like recording the fans rather. And then did a frog splash, turned him like RVD style, like turned his body in the air and landed right on, like perfectly, right on Roman Reigns. It was just so well done. And after that, the sell job he did was perfect. It was just, you gotta go see it, guys. You gotta check it out. The ending sequence was so well done too. At this point, the Usos made their way down to the ring. Logan had did pretty much a crossbody over the top rope onto the Usos outside of the ring. Jake Paul helped him up, helped Logan back up, getting him into the ring. That gave Roman Reigns just enough time to hit the Superman punch onto Logan, who again sold it very, very well. He was kind of stammering, kind of really, again, just very well done. Kind of clamoring to get back to his feet. Hit his feet just in time for Roman Reigns to hit the spear and get the 1, 2, 3. Again, no hesitation, no, oh, I can kick out at 3.5, let me move my arm, let me move my foot at the last second, let me, none of that bullshit. And I think even Jake Paul played his part pretty well. The Usos came down and cleared out Logan's friends, which they should have done. Jake Paul came out and got a lucky punch in on both of the Usos that keyed up Solo to make his way down to the ring. They didn't actually touch, which was, I think, an interesting sign. I think we're going to get some variation of the bloodline, whether it's the Usos versus the Paul brothers at some point, or if you want to do maybe Jay and Solo, especially if Jimmy is injured. You can do Jay and Solo versus the Paul brothers. I think there's a lot of possibilities down the road. So, again, just the match itself was just very, very well done. I think it definitely went over 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. Logan definitely, I don't want to say stole the show, but this match stole the show. And I think he really, again, proved dude is here and dude is taking this seriously. And I think besides that, Roman Reigns played his part to the T. And the emotion that Roman Reigns showed as he was celebrating his victory on the aisle with, of course, the bloodline, and while Paul was just enamored and just professing his love to Roman just, you could tell the emotion, it was just like a relief. He put his head into one of the titles and then just kind of took a moment just like embracing the title and just like leaving his head on the belt itself. After he did that, he just let out this just roar and just like, it was just really cool. And just like this affirmation of, yeah, I'm the man, like I don't want to see him anymore. I'm done with him. I'm the man. I'm the champ. And just celebrating his win, just that roar that you let out after you just get a victory that you've worked your ass off for. That's what he did. And again, like I said earlier, Logan sold the agony of defeat so well. It was just very well done. And again, if you boycott these shows, I totally respect that and I get that. But I would try to make it a point to at least see parts of this match in particular. But with that all being said, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show and downloading, listening, all that good stuff. I'm going to wrap it up here while I still sound somewhat human. But thank you guys again for checking it out, and we'll be back soon. Take care.